Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let's begin with Kitab Al-Fatiha. Okay, good morning everyone. Hopefully you are doing well. Let me just share my presentation. Okay, can you see the slides?
Yes, Sir.
Okay. If you still recall, in our previous discussion, the first topic is where we try to appreciate who are the people behind the digital veil. According to Content Code, there were two major groups of service providers. One is content provider, and another one is network or application service provider. So under those two, they perform several functions that we have discussed before. And then moving forward to, we talked about the internet governance, how in the broader sense, how the internet is being regulated as well as governed. Governance under cyber law is basically referring to a broader way of managing regulation or policies, different policies around the globe, coming to a one meeting point so that we can have a safe and have a coordinated internet governance around the world. So meaning that as far as the internet user is concerned, we can enjoy the connection, we can enjoy the content that we see online without any technical problems or of that sort. So in a way, from network level until the the end user, at the level of end user, the whole internet infrastructure is being properly coordinated and monitored, so that any, if there were any government regulation or policy, they ensure that those are made in line with all sorts of regulation required. So from there, we also generally look at the models of regulation, like self-regulation, co-regulation, and so on. From there, we considered what about the liabilities of intermediaries. Intermediaries. Remember that intermediaries are people who provide mere conduit. They just become mere conduit of content. Yeah, they don't edit. They don't have their business is just to allow content from third party to pass through their servers or their domain, so that people can be connected. So in a way, this is very much it's a different role altogether. If you try to compare with a content creator, for example, a content creator, of course, plays a very significant role in creating content, not just creating content, but also publishing after the creator, the publisher. So in that sense, content creator or maybe content host, for example, they are not intermediary. Yeah, they are not defined as intermediary. So remember and don't get mixed up. Don't get confused between intermediary, who is intermediary and who is not intermediary. Yeah. So if the service provider plays a role in which they edit the content, they have the power to edit, to create the content. Yeah? Meaning that they basically they are not merely merely just a conduit. Yeah? They perform extra responsibility in creating content and so on. So in those kind of situations, usually content creator must be responsible for whatever that appears or is being published on their site. And several examples that we discussed, like before in the topic before, the case of Malaysia Kini. Malaysia Kini is clearly we can see that the federal court interpreted the position of Malaysia Kini as not, it is not intermediary. Yeah? So meaning they try to claim the immunity provided under the so-called content code, but from the interpretation of the case, we can see that federal court is coming to a conclusion that Malaysia Kini is not just doing mere conduit. So they basically facilitates publication of content and so on. So that is why they have to be responsible for what is being published on their website, particularly when the court is very sensitive as far as the image of the judiciary is concerned. This is perhaps the reason why the approach taken was they're looking at the broader sense of why the content code as well as the CMA was drafted. And we can see that in this scenario, the court is taking something like a paternalistic approach to protect its the sanctity of its the institution. Yeah? So from there, we learned about we know that these are the liabilities, and to a certain extent, intermediary can enjoy certain liability. In this context, this is where in this current topic and the topic number 5, basically topic number 4 ni dia ada 2 slides. This is the first slide, and then next week we will discuss the second part to this topic. So we will look at how internet content can be regulated, under and we can actually see as you will see after this the kinds of the approaches basically we can find most of these approaches being done under the self-regulation framework, but certain selected measures were also being implemented under the co-regulation framework as well as the direct regulation framework. So we will just go through what are the ways or measures that we can implement in order to regulate internet content. And you can see that, okay, for example, usage of internet filter is something common in any self-regulation framework, including Malaysia. Malaysia also uses internet filter. It's just that if you read my book, you will find that the usage of internet filter is not mandatory, or it's not compulsory as far as the law is concerned. So this we will explore, if I'm not mistaken, internet filter, content rating and labeling. There are several other mechanisms that we will discuss. Okay, so the reason why, okay, this one you can please read my book, chapter berapa? This one is under chapter 5. Chapter 5, page 160. So please take some time to read chapter 5. So the whole idea for why basically government or even regulator they opt for content regulation. If we recall the earlier discussion that we had, the first when internet was first introduced, it was basically introduced in the US based on certain military requirements or military studies. So from there it developed, but as the time goes on, what happened in the United States was that the government wanted this internet to be privatized. So more and more private companies have dominated the development of the internet. So and from time to time we can see that there were abundance of content risk, what we call as risky content online, which has sparked a lot of global concerns. So when there was this concerns about risky content, what is risky content? They are basically, it can be illegal content as well as harmful content. Some illegal contents are like pornography, child pornography, hate speech and so on. But under certain national law, some kind of content may not be illegal, but it can be harmful. So you can see that usually they try to couple this together. They put it as illegal and harmful content in order to regulate certain kind of content under the law. So because of this rising trend on the availability of illegal content online, this has somehow made the government around the world to consider regulating internet content. And we can actually see that it's quite common to see illegal contents like child pornography. This is very much being targeted as well as being criminalized by many governments around the world. And we can actually see that around the world, the global community is very much concerned about this toxic that we have in this cyberspace. So in a way, there were many efforts being carried out. Of course, when the government took certain efforts to regulate the internet, there were voices which says that the government is trying to suppress freedom of expression. This is it has been reported by many NGO, even some mostly for political reasons. They will claim that any restriction to digital freedom of expression is a suppression of their right to speech. So this certain, but basically, when you go through chapter 5 in my book, you will find that some governments they have certain approach in dealing with issues happening in their jurisdiction, but some other governments prefer to just leave it open and leave it just adopt the democratic approach. Yeah. Meaning that they don't really monitor what the internet users are doing online. So this, of course, the approach differs under national laws, but we can actually see that on common reasons like common crimes, like child pornography, the world basically has come together in trying to combat and ensure that we will shut down the websites that offer this kind of illegal content. So please go through, because you can see like China has their own way, and North Korea they develop their own internet, for example, intranet they call it. And then of course the approach where the government regulate it very much depend on the policies that the government of the day develop. So if another example, if we see like Saudi Arabia practice censorship of pornography and immoral content online, authorities also conduct strict surveillance on cyber cafe. So there were many approaches. Some approaches were said to contravene the human rights, so-called. Whenever there's a political issues in a country, like what happened in Egypt like 10 years back, internet access was being cut off to prevent people from further flaring up the issue online. So this was somehow some of the strategy to cater to political issues. Yeah, we can see a lot of this, a lot of a lot of examples whereby some governments have done this. They use the technology to restrict access to the internet. Yeah? Another issue of concern is that when governments started to regulate, and then does it mean that we are heading towards a culture of censorship? This is also an interesting debate to observe, yeah? Because if we look at those countries who apply self-regulation framework, they will claim that if they police, if they regulate certain kind of online content, for example, like child pornography just now, that is basically policing the law or enforcing the law. And another favorite quote is that what is illegal offline is also illegal online. So applying these principles, most regulators, they would like to see, or they would like to take this approach. If a certain crime is illegal or in the real world, they don't see why it should be legal in the cyber world. So this brings us to this issue of censorship. But we can see that as far as even censorship is concerned, there were some countries who do this. They do this, all of this, this what we call as incidents. They do this out of sometimes because of political issues that has threatened national security. So to a certain extent, this is the government consider that all this thing happening online, could basically threaten the safety of the country. So which is why content regulation was adopted. Yeah? Okay. So internet censorship has become a widespread tool to limit access to illegal and objectionable content. They will also there were also concern, of course, when internet censorship is being implemented, it might cause chilling effects on the intermediaries or even on the service provider. What is chilling effect here? Chilling effect on freedom of speech. Yeah? So meaning it's like people will not say what they want to say on any particular forum anymore, because they themselves will shut their mouth, shut their eyes. Macam chilling, the freedom of speech is chilled in a way where people will refrain from exercising their freedom of speech, and this is what the proponents of censorship is saying. So chilling effects lead to violation of right to free flow of information, as well as it could be also a demise of democracy and human rights. So that's one perspective. So another perspective is that when we come to the notion of internet freedom, is it really true that we enjoy certain freedom online? So based on if, for example, we are an Islamic country. Of course, in an Islamic country, we will not create any policy or law that allows the LGBT group to exercise dia punya itulah pelik-pelik itu kan. So we may actually impose certain kind of restriction on content relating to LGBT, which because it's against the Sharia law, not just Sharia law but also the civil law, and this is not basically not a tolerable subject lah. Yeah. So in a way, what the statement is being made and dekat bawah tu, no country in the world allows no censorship. The difference between one country and another is the extent of the restriction. It maybe in certain situation it is reduced, certain situation it is increased. So this really depends on the national law, on how the government prefers or is willing to tolerate on this. Right. Despite saying that some countries, have a lot of freedom online, countries like United States, for example, they say that they are the among the freest country in the world for internet. But at the same time, if you go through the Internet Freedom Report, you can actually see that they are imposing many kind of regulation as well. Canada, Brazil, Colombia, UK pun, meaning although they say that they prefer free internet without interference from government, but from time to time, if there were some threatening issues, they will not hesitate to look at the matter and consider to regulate that particular content. Yeah? Okay, so as far as Malaysia is concerned, of course, we believe in religion, freedom of religion, good moral and traditional culture. So as far as the Malaysian context is concerned, we have crafted our law to consider or to regulate the internet in line with what our values should be. Yeah? So yalah, kita punya budaya kita lah kan, budaya agama, our religion and so on. Yeah? So something that the society cannot tolerate. Yeah. So we will have the tendency to regulate content as such lah. Yeah? Okay. So therefore, based on those reasons, we can actually see that because of the abundance of risky content online, and then the issue on censorship and so on, we can see that content regulation is inevitable. Basically, countries must do something in order to mitigate risk, online risk. Yeah. So this can be done or has been seen to be done under several ways. Yeah. And you can actually see that, for example, with the next slide, we'll talk about internet filtering or internet filter. These are some of the common features of self-regulation framework. Yeah? So macam Malaysia pun, we are actually implementing similar measures whereby we develop internet filter to filter out any illegal or harmful content. Okay, from here you will see that the discussion may appear a little bit technical, but don't worry too much about the technicality. We just want to appreciate how internet filter works, and then whether the usage of internet filter could be contrary to the freedoms recognized under the constitution. So because sometimes when we use filters, they are not always effective in prohibiting access to illegal content. Sometimes there has to be some loopholes whereby the filter cannot detect certain things and this escaped from its filtering scope. Yeah? So in a way, there's also cases whereby filter has been proven to censor too much. So they macam over censoring. So in cases where over censoring happens, this can actually cause restriction to digital expression. So this was some of the bad sides of using filter lah. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the first regulatory mechanism here, which is internet filter. Before I move on to this, the first regulatory mechanism, any question? Okay, no question. Okay, so the first regulatory mechanism is internet filter. Yeah? Using government or regulator can use internet filter. This is quite common. It's a common tool to reduce online content risk. Yeah? Okay, so the process to filter internet content, was described by this commission, as the use of computer or software to screen content and control users' access to that content, which is deemed objectionable or that falls into certain predetermined categories of content deemed to be inappropriate for a given user. So they use computer or software, and the purpose is basically to screen all the contents. If the content falls into some kind of category that the regulator already set, or already put forward, then it will be it will be filtered out. Yeah. Okay. Internet filtering has the potential to mitigate risk of exposure to risky content online, particularly child pornography, adult pornography, violence, and hate speech. So in the early 1990s, this was very much developed. Yeah? There were many projects to develop filter. The purpose is to regulate child's access to illegal and harmful material online. Yeah? Okay. So how filtering works? We know that filtering software, it's a software. Yeah, it can also be installed in the computer. Yeah? So the first level is filter. The filter will conduct selection of internet content to be identified for exclusion, and after that is done, the second process is to block the content. If it fits into the criteria, the second process is to block access to the content. So generally, as far as the first step is concerned, identification of the content, they can use two ways to detect. First is by index filtering, and second is analysis filtering. Index filtering is whereby you put or you determine based on the list, blacklist, for example. If you put the website in the blacklist, then the website will be part of the index filtering, and then once katalah macam any person would like to access website that has been put on the blacklist, then the filter will do its job to prevent access to the said user. So another one is whitelisting. Whitelist. This is where whitelisting is blacklist. You have to manually put the name of the website in the list. Selalunya whitelisting is it applies where those websites who are not listed in the blacklist are given or are allowed access lah. So whitelist ni dia terbalik. Blacklist is you have to clearly spell out if you want to block a certain website. For example, you want to block facebook.com. www, you have to put in the entry www.facebook.com. So it is part of your blacklist, and anyone else cannot see the website facebook.com. But using whitelist is where you those are websites which are not listed in the blacklist. So usually they will allow access to those not listed lah. So blacklisted and whitelist may be developed manually through human searches and content analysis, or automatically by analysis filtering. Yeah, in some advanced kind of filtering software, they have adopted machine learning or AI technology, so that they can the websites will be suggested lah. This AI will suggest some particular websites based on certain preferences. So dia macam automated kind of way to detect the website. Okay. Index filtering offers better speed in identifying content to be filtered. It may be conducted in 3 manners: whitelist, blacklist, and category indexes. Okay, whitelisting allows access only to websites on a pre-approved list, typically designed to prevent access to illegal, harmful, and inappropriate content. Usually the list is created and maintained by government or private organization, for example, like the UK Internet Watch Foundation. Malaysia, we have this blacklist. Yeah, we have blacklist which is maintained by the Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission, MCMC. But they don't, at the moment, they don't publish what are the websites that is listed under the blacklist. Yeah, maybe it's private and confidential lah, kan? Okay, and then another method of index filtering is by way of category indexes. Yeah? Sometimes you put the you want to filter out any kind of content that talks about abortion, for example. So you letaklah that category under the filter. I don't want to see anything that has the word abortion, and then the filter will block any websites that has that word. Okay, and then second method, just now we talked about index filtering. This is analysis filtering, the second way. It's a bit more complicated than index filtering because of the dynamic classification of content. Yeah, they basically use advanced technique lah, among others. They use keyword filtering, profile filtering, and image analysis filtering. This was very much computerized lah, automated to detect and as well as block the particular website lah. So example, keyword filtering here, you can put in any keyword that you would like to filter out. Profile filtering is basically sometimes this particular website is well known for publishing terrorist-related content. So based on profile filtering, they can filter out websites which has this tendency of hosting terrorism-related content. Image analysis filtering, sometimes the filter can automatically search and detect if, let's say, for example, pornography website usually has a large tone of skin, maknanya ni lah color manusia punya color kulit kan. So the image analysis filtering can somehow detect that, okay, it might be a pornography website. So based on that, they can basically filter out the website. But this can be mistaken sometimes, because for example, if the website is selling swimsuits, so of course the swimsuit model will wear the swimsuits, and there will large skin tone. and the filter may be mistaken and thinking that this is actually pornography ke apa kan, but actually it's not pornography. So it somehow require human intervention to determine whether the accuracy of the filtering. File type filtering, we can use some some kind of content. They have large files being stored, so maybe it can be an indicator of that the website is storing some large amount of videos, for example, maybe illegal copyrighted movie. So it can be detected that way. Link filtering, and finally reputation-based filtering. Dia selalu tengok previous historical records, whether they may have hosted illegal and harmful content. This method is commonly used in email attachment and to address e-security threats. Reputation filtering ni macam, if you try to look at your email inbox, you can see that somehow the computer, for example, if you're using Gmail, you can see that Gmail can sort out which one that looks like spam and which one that looks genuine. So this is another example. So those emails that appears to be repeatedly sent to other parties, to other recipients, macam it looks like they are bombing thousands of users with the same email. In that kind of situation, the email administrator software can somehow detect this could be spam, so it will be filtered out into the spam box, which sometimes, I think you might observe this, sometimes they basically unintentionally they filter out emails which are genuine. So then we cannot find, somebody has sent us a work-related email, and then we cannot find it because it has been put into the spam box. So this is why there's some technical glitches that the filtering may be mistaken, in some sense. Okay, right. Once the filtering or content identification has been done, the next is basically to block the content. The next, once they identify which one that you want to block, the next step is to block the content. There are several methods, or we call it as technologies, or techniques that we can use to block content. Number one, packet filtering. Number two, domain name system tampering, caching web proxies, and port blocking. Okay, if you use packet filtering, for example, this is one of the way to block the content. This is where at the network level, at the level of the ISP, for example, there is this device that examine the request to access the website. Selalunya macam if we want to access the google.com, we type in our computer www.google.com and then we press enter. What happens next is that the computer will contact the server of the said website, and then if the server allows access to it, then only you will get the content, and then it appears on your screen. If you apply packet filtering, what you requested to access, let's say is detected by the ISP or the network level filtering too. You're trying to access something which is in the blacklist, and then what happens next is that the network or the router will not forward the content requested, to you. So because it is being listed under the blacklist, so this causes all internet content on such website to be entirely blocked without notice to the netizens who attempt to gain access. Packet filtering also has the potential to overblock the entire website, meaning you cannot select several pages only. If you want to block a website, the technology now is that they will block the entire website. So say for example, Facebook has millions, perhaps billions of videos online, and then you want this particular video to be deleted. So they can do this through the filtering techniques, but they can be a situation where it can the content may appear somewhere else in some other websites because it's been copied around, or maybe other kinds of innocent content is being overblocked. So this can cause your information to be denied from access. Yeah. Okay, and then next is DNS tampering. If you use DNS tampering, this is where for example, when netizens request access to a website, shall provide its address www.google.com in the web browser. DNS server will then translate google.com into an IP address, and upon correct matches with the server information, it will return the content to the netizen. However, this process can be disturbed through DNS tampering. What happens is that it will change information provided by the DNS server, and it will return that to the user. And when this happens, it will never allow access to the correct IP address. And what is shown is, it will show this error page and error 404. I think you have come across this kind of errors so this is pretty technical. However, DNS tampering also has been criticized for overblocking, meaning it has the tendency to overblock. Websites with illegal content may only be hosted in one small part of the website, but if you apply this, it's pretty similar with the previous technique. It can cause the blocking of the entire website. And the next issue is whether this is a restriction to digital expression rights. Caching is another way to do this, to block access to internet. Web proxies are used in networks where it acts as agent of the internet user. When user requests access to certain content, the proxy will search for the content from the internet server. Upon successful search, the server delivers such content to the user. So when you use caching web proxies, it will increase browsing speed and reduce the bandwidth. It can also precisely block unwanted content based on URL. But if you use this, the technology may degrade network performance because it requires high computational power. And finally, port blocking, second final. Port blocking is sometimes port ni bukan port where the ships harbor. This is the internet ports if you use port blocking, you will block the so-called certain port that hosts access to the content. Example here is that email program, they use this port 110, for example. So if you block this port, it will block all access to the content entirely. This is also similar. Port blocking does not examine content on the websites analytically, so there can be issues of freedom of expression in case where the content over-blocking happens. Okay. And finally, age verification technology. This is where the filter try to determine the age of the user. If the user was found to be underage, then the filter will deny access to the said content. Example is like payment card networks. They collaborate with law enforcement to curtail child pornography. So when child pornography transactions were detected by age screening system, a merchant can be expelled from using such payment system in the future. So let's say a website is hosting this child pornography material and also selling the material online. So payment, usually the payment card networks like Visa, MasterCard, they have collaborated with the law enforcement agencies. If there were any child pornography transactions being detected, they will expel this merchant from using their payment system in the future. So because of this, somehow it has the rate of availability to availability of child pornography has been reduced quite significantly. Farhana asked question. Number one, do filters only applicable to websites on surface web? Is it possible to reach the deep web as well? Technically, and although people say that there's this thing called deep web, they are pretty similar to the regular websites that appears on the surface lah. Dia tak ada website ni sebenarnya semua sama aja. Dia maknanya you as long as you have address, then you can access to the website. The term deep web is being coined as if there is a certain part of the internet which cannot be used or cannot be accessed simply by the normal browsing way. So generally, if you can find the address, filter can work in such a way to block access to the address to the website. And then is flagging option in social media can be considered as filter as well? I would say yes. It's in certain way we can see that if Facebook and they have this flagging mechanism. If you flag, and then they will check the what you have flagged, and if whatever that you complain about is true, they will take it down or disable access to it. So in a way, dia macam internet filter lah, tapi I would prefer to call that as content moderation, which we will discuss I think in the next topic. So dia ada guna some techniques, filtering techniques, but because it involves some checking mechanism, dia lebih pada content moderation. So I think that's the answer. Okay, Hana. So another example, like in the United States, Financial Coalition Against Child Pornography shares information and take action against child pornography merchants. And then they also, this was actually a global effort in trying to ensure that no child pornography material will be made available in any countries. So now, as far as the UK Internet Watch Foundation report is concerned, they're saying that as of I think 2016, kalau tak salah, less than 0.3% of the imagery identified last year was hosted in the UK. 95% was removed within a day, often within 2 hours. So this can somehow help the law enforcement. But you may ask, or you may ponder, if they can strategize something like this for child pornography, why not do it for other kinds of content too? Maybe do it for fake news, do it for the regular pornography, maybe do it for the terrorism content. So they have been trying to do this, but there's always a way for these crooks to find some lacuna in, or there's always a backdoor to this in policing other kinds of content. So itu yang the challenges as far as the cyber enforcement is concerned, which is why even the Malaysian police, they will try as best as possible to collaborate with international platforms to try to hunt certain kind of illegal content and make it unavailable. But sometimes what is illegal under our law might not be illegal in other countries' law. A clear example is pornography, adult pornography. In other countries, like usually in the Western countries, as long as you are 18 years old, you can access. You can have access, you can purchase and whatever, you can make transaction. But in our country, we don't, I think in many Islamic countries, we share similar way. We don't tolerate, regardless whether you are adult or not. This content it does not bring any benefit to the society. So the government has decided to make it illegal, regardless of age. But in some countries like Australia, US, the position is different, whereby they say that, okay, adults, you can have access to this, although they know the risk and so on. So this is the different, I would say, enforcement rules, which somehow makes our law enforcement much more difficult, especially when in other countries the said content is not illegal. So itu yang susah. And furthermore, when the content is not hosted in our country, maknanya the content, the server is not based in our country, it is based in another country. So if you want a request for content deletion, content filtering, that will be pretty difficult to do, because the other country might not appreciate our request. Okay. The US Federal Trade Commission also, they do this credit card age verification system so that they want to ensure no children will circumvent this age verification filter. But I think there's always a way. If let's say the child knows the details of the credit card, because the parents give them the details, so they can somehow circumvent the said filter. So there's always some loopholes to this. So parents will have to be careful when they hand over credit card or what to the child, unless maybe anak dia dah besar ke apa, tu lain lah kan. Okay. Okay, there were some issues and challenges as far as filters is concerned. Filter is basically developed generally to protect children and as well as adults against exposure to online risk. So in public libraries, many public libraries as well as schools, they have installed this filter, internet filter, to prevent access to illegal content. So this is something positive that the objective of the filter is being developed. But filter, although it is capable to monitor online activity and website, at the same time it can also limit children's browsing time. So the favorite app now is Google Family Link that can be used to block. So bukan block, macam you can set how many hours of your children internet browsing time. Maybe in one day you want to allow only 2 hours. So you set lah, bila sampai 2 jam, the Google Family Link will block, and the child cannot use the device anymore. I think in some other situations where the filter can also block blacklisted websites. Another success story here, the UK Internet Watch Foundation, they have claimed that they have, through their way of blacklisting websites, it has effectively reduced access to child pornography material in the UK. But the most common problem with internet filter is that it has this tendency to overblock or underblock content. There is this research conducted by European Commission. They examined 30 filtering software. They have found that this filtering software has a 25% margin of error when they make filtering decisions. So this margin of error can be constitutionally problematic. It may restrict freedom of speech if certain kind of genuine content is being filtered out. In the United States, in the case of Ashcroft and American Civil Liberty Union, they say the Supreme Court thinks that promoting the use of internet filter is a better option, since they do not condemn as a criminal any category of speech. They also, so basically the potential chilling effect is eliminated or at least reduced. So dia macam nak kata macam at least it's better that you use just filter, although it has some issues, but at least it can reduce the potential chilling of freedom of speech. Filter may also be more effective than the COPPA is Child Online Protection Act. A filter can prevent minors from seeing all pornography, not just pornography posted to the web from America. So the court noted in its fact finding that there's about 40% of harmful to minor content comes from overseas. So the Child Online Protection Act does not prevent minors from having access to those foreign harmful materials. So dia maknanya macam, although the Supreme Court is saying, although there are some issues of overblocking or underblocking, at least it's a better option rather than not filtering at all. COPPA, the Child Online Protection Act, was the Congress's second attempt to protect children from access to sexually explicit material by banning it. Say what COPPA does was to ban sale to children. COPPA was kat Amerika dia selalu this kind of provision was being declared unconstitutional and so on. Yang ni please read in, I think, in chapter 5 for the further discussion on this. In UK approach, they also UK they develop some kind of they apply both self-regulation and co-regulation. So we can see that as far as UK is concerned, they they use this filtering to monitor to have a close supervision over the internet. Okay, I think as far as Malaysia is concerned, we also adopt quite closely with UK. Although in our jurisdiction, there has yet to be any case that comes to the court that challenges on the use of filter. So sekarang ni pun baru kita nampak lah more and more cases being and sometime our I'm not sure about whether there are any. I think there are filtering software being developed by our local developers, but there are also tendency of companies to buy internet filtering from filtering software from other countries, so other developers residing in other countries. So in a way, it depends on the setting that you put in. If you want more protection, then you must put in many things lah in the filtering. So that's one. That's the first approach that we have discussed today. Filtering, internet filtering, which is common to be used in many self-regulation scheme. Co-regulation also use internet filter as part of its regulatory framework. So dia sebenarnya dia tak pakai satu je, dia kadang-kadang they will use multiple way in trying to reduce access to illegal content lah. So one of them is filtering. Okay, that's the end of this topic. Any question? In the next topic, we will discuss on content moderation. That's a second way to regulate. Next topic, we'll talk about content rating and labeling as a way to to regulate content. And then we have moderation, content moderation, whereby ini selalunya macam websites like Malaysia Kini lah, they use content moderation in trying to check something. Okay, lagi apa? Next topic, we'll look at the real name verification system, which is adopted by the South Korean government in 2010. But although this was quite fancy, but the court in Korea later on declared that this is against the freedom of speech. So we have a look at that. And finally, there is this notice and take down. The final one, the popular way to regulate the internet is through imposing notice and take down procedure. Okay. Yeah, any question perhaps?
No question.
Ya, Nick?
Ada soalan?
Okay.
Sir,
Yes, Adinin.
what about if the those illegal content providers, they use like code names, like abbreviation for the things that they wanted to spread, that is like only known to their own community, that should be not like usual terms that we use by the authority and enforcement officers.
What about them?
Like how do they filter out those code names? Like, would not dia macam susah sikit nak cari, or
Okay.
like
I guess that's the job of those experts, IT experts lah, to assist the police or even the MCMC in regulating the content lah. So if they use code names, something which is difficult to be found by layman, so selalunya in police investigation, for example, they will call in experts from Cybersecurity Malaysia to help out lah with this kind of difficult detection technique. So it can be done lah. It can be done. Okay.
okay, thank you, sir.
I have a question.
Yeah, Nick.
Is it like legal for, let's say, law enforcement to set up like a honeypot, or like you would say like a trap for, let's say, pedophiles?
Nick, you are. I cannot hear your voice lah. Macam bergema.
Is that?
Better. That's better.
What I'm asking is, are law enforcement allowed to like cause a trap to capture, let's say, pedophiles, for example?
Are law enforcement agencies allowed to do what?
Like cause a trap, like let's say they make like a fake, let's say, child pornography website. We're not actually sure, but then like they try to capture these pedophiles. Is that something which is legal for law enforcement to do?
Oh, maknanya they apply some kind of code ke apa to filter out, is it? Yeah, they can basically adopt any kind of approach lah in order to detect these illegal websites and later on to filter out lah. Okay, ni
Thank you.
So basically, the usage of internet filter is popular nowadays. Even when you're using browser like Google, Chrome, you can basically install your preferred filter. But this is purely on what we can see as voluntary basis lah. It's not compulsory yet to have filters being installed on computers. There were some suggestions that maybe as far as Malaysia is concerned, maybe we should implement a network level filter. But what happens at the moment is that it's on the jurisdiction of MCMC to determine what website should be put in its blacklist. So if, let's say, katalah this website is being put in the blacklist, what happens next is MCMC will instruct ISP to block access to the websites. MCMC sendiri dia tak buat blocking tu. They will ask the ISPs to ensure that these listed websites are not accessible in Malaysia. So itu je lah, maknanya the extent of which the content can be blocked is limited to the jurisdiction of the country lah. So for example, if yang tadi my example just now, if you go to Thailand, if the Thailand government does not block the said website, so it may be accessible in Thailand or maybe in Singapore. Tapi as far as Malaysia is concerned, okay, the government has decided website ABC to be blocked because it has infringed the law. So what what it happens after that is they will ask the ISP in Malaysia to apply whatever technique they want, ensure that the access cannot be made to the same website. Tapi the challenge is if we go to other country, if that country does not block the website, then maknanya we can access from other country. Another problem or another way is also to use the what we call it as apa tu? Lupa dah. There is another software yang dia boleh pakai lah untuk mirror the connection. Anyone can recall? What is it called? Tak ingat. So if you there are some technical ways to circumvent the filtering, and those yang macam dia pandai sikit tu dia tahulah how to do this. And the another problem is that the thing is that to do this, nama dia apa DNS apa bukan blocking, macam mirroring the website. Any guessing? Tak ingat lah IP number. So the thing is that using techniques, trying to use techniques in trying to circumvent, katalah satu website ni government dah block dah, tapi dia guna certain kind of proxy or techniques, they try to circumvent the block. The thing is that under our law, misuse of network can be declared as a crime, but dia macam tak berapa jelas lagi dia sama ada if let's say we use something like some software to circumvent, whether that can be illegal or not. So there has provisions, wider provisions are there as far as misuse of network communication is concerned. Tetapi we have yet to see how far we can use the current law to prosecute. And furthermore, detection can also be quite challenging, especially when the user is anonymous. We have learned some of the what happens in the court. I think in several cases they discussed, they're using IP address, they use the to determine who is the real person behind the screen. Those were the attempts in trying to find who is this anonymous user. But in the absence of certain kind of evidence like CCTV and so on, it's always difficult to really determine who is the real crook behind the screen. Okay, ada soalan lagi?
Sir, I have a question.
Okay.
You know how nowadays people use VPN to access
Tadi saya nak cakap VPN, saya tak ingat.
Oh, okay, that's the thing ke sir yang sir cakap. Okay. Because for example in Malaysia there's like illegal website that being blocked in here, right? So basically if some people use the VPN, they can access the website in another country. Is that how it works actually?
Yeah.
Like how you explain? Oh, okay. And I have another question.
Exactly. That's what I meant actually.
Does blocking people consider as internet filtering? Because for example, I don't like this one content creator and I just block the person just because I don't like the content itself. Do we consider that as internet filtering as well?
Blocking people because you don't like the person, to a certain extent, I think they use similar measures lah kan. Tapi the context of our discussion today is not so much into those kind of specified use of social media lah. It's more on the general use of website. So kalau kita nak prevent access to this website, we can use filtering software to block lah. Tapi this techniques, this blocking techniques has been adapted and modified, and then supaya it can be applicable in apps provided by social media platform. So sebab tu now it has been there are many advanced techniques adopted from the blocking mechanisms lah. So tu yang kita boleh block orang dekat apa? Let's say in our phone, we don't want any suspicious number to call us, so we install the Truecaller. So Truecaller will block any attempts to reach us. So dia dah diversify lah cara dia block sesuatu tu. Tapi essentially that is the basic principles of how blocking is being carried out lah. So kalau macam sekarang dah ada social media and so on, dia memang they adopted the measures or the mechanism, okay, so that you can block what you don't want to see, which is good. I think technologies are adapting quite swiftly. Okay, Zarina.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Okay, so let's meet again next Monday, I think. Monday.
Wednesday.
Kejap. Kelas ganti kita tu bila? Check ke kalender kejap. We will meet again on the next coming Wednesday lah. Wednesday and Friday. Yang replacement lecture kita tu 22nd November. Okay, thank you very much. Let's close with tasbih kafarah. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, sir.
Good day.
Thank you, sir. Waalaikumsalam.